So one thing about me is I like to preach sermons I've never heard before. So today's topic, well, I'll tell you how I got there. I was looking at Jesus at the wedding feast and the turning the water into wine and wondering why did he do that? First of all, Jesus was at a wedding feast, which meant he wasn't the sober guy going around always with a frown on his face. He did know how to enjoy life. Then they're wondering why his mother would ask him to turn water into wine. So it's okay to disagree with me on this, really. And I thought, well, it rationalized it to me at least. Like, here's someone from a small town who got pregnant before she was married. And I'm pretty sure all of you can imagine that at a wedding, this got brought up every time. How she got pregnant before she was married. And I thought, well, maybe this was Jesus' way of saying, I understand your position, Mom. She got tired of it and said, let me show you what that son I had out of wedlock can do. And so Jesus came and said, Mom, I understand. You've been gossiped about. Here's water into wine, and now every wedding, they're going to know that's what happened with your son. I don't know if that's real, but I thought maybe that's a lesson out of Jesus' life that wasn't said. So today's topic is on what did Jesus teach by the way he walked, not by what he said. So I read through the Gospels, skipping all the red letters, which is kind of a neat read, something I've never done before. And you don't get tied up in what he said. You get to see what he did. So we're going to discuss a few things that he did constantly that we can get a lesson out of. Maybe. You can disagree with me. It's okay. I like to talk to people who can conveniently disagree. Just talk to me about it, and maybe I disagree with myself when I'm done. So the first thing I noticed, especially reading Matthew, if you avoid all the red lettering, is Jesus healed people before he started talking. So one of the things they talk about why bad things happen to good people is that when Adam and Eve took the fruit, they said they want to be self-sufficient. They didn't want to have to rely on God. So one of the reasons that bad things happen to good people is to remind us that we are not self-sufficient. We need to rely on God. So when Jesus was healing people before he spoke, people couldn't heal themselves. And God healed them to let them know you're not self-sufficient by yourself, but with me, we can live this life. We are sufficient. So he made them physically sufficient, and then he taught them spiritual message, which made them spiritually sufficient. So with God, humans can be sufficient. So what can we get out of this? John the Baptist came, prepared the way for Jesus to talk, and Jesus, instead of just talking, did something for them physically that they couldn't do on their own. So what can we do for people that they can't do on their own? There are things we can't do on their own, things that people need help with. And I think one of the things people really need help with is someone that listens to them. In our society, we don't get listened to a lot. And I have preached an entire sermon on just this topic, listening to people. But people definitely need to be listened to in a non-judgmental way. They want to be able to talk. I like to be able to talk to people that disagree with me, but we can have a discussion so that we can actually learn why we think the way we think. And sometimes that leads to, I don't agree with you, but I understand completely how you got there. And that leads to understanding and helping people live their lives. One of the things I've learned is helping people live up to their own expectations. You can't help people live up to your expectations, but people have their own idea of what they should be doing. And if you help them live up to what they think they should be doing, they can't get mad at you because you're just helping them live up to what they want to live up to. And that's different than making them live up to what you want to live up to. But to get them to understand, for you to know what they want to live up to, you have to first listen. Listening to people is something that in this society especially, people need. And they want to be not judged. You can't convert people by judging them. You have to love them, let them know that they're not sufficient without God. Let them know you're there for them. So letting you know they're there for them. So this is another thing Jesus did, is he spent time alone. So this will probably be the only verse I read, but out of Mark. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and they found him. They exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus needed time alone. I'm sure he observed the Sabbath, so this was something he needed outside of the Sabbath. Did he need time alone because things weren't going his way? No. John the Baptist laid the foundation. He came, he healed the sick, he taught the people. Everything was going right. And he chose to take time alone. Make sure we take time alone. That's not watching TV or playing on your iPad or your phone. That is time alone, but it's not the recuperative time alone that we need to learn to take. He also didn't tell his disciples that he was leaving. Because when you have to report to someone, it's a burden on you. So when I was in New Hampshire teaching at 40 years old, I took off one weekend and I thought, this is the first time in my life where I haven't had to report where I'm going and what I'm doing when I get back. And so when I got back to work, people asked me what I did. I said, thanks for asking, but I'm really enjoying this not having to report to someone for the first time in my life. That's a relaxation. So on top of taking time for yourself alone, allow other people to do that. Many of us have this need to help people and to ask them what's wrong. Jesus didn't need someone to ask him what's wrong when he's going off to pray. Nothing was wrong. He just needed time alone. Needed time with him and God. So just because someone needs time alone doesn't mean something's wrong. When you're singing songs, some of you may be like me, some of the songs I get emotional and I just want to listen. It doesn't mean something's wrong. It just means there's a time I want to listen and hear you. And then other times I can sing, and someone else may not be wanting to sing that song. And it doesn't mean anything's wrong, just a time of inner reflection. So take your time alone and allow others to take their time alone without worrying about whether they need help or not. Now, Jesus, when he went to the garden, he took his disciples with them, took a few more further on, and then went off to pray. He wanted to be alone, but wanted to know people were there for him. Because then he came back and complained that they were sleeping. Of course, in Mark, they were sleeping, and he took off without them. Didn't even wake them up. So he wanted to know they were there. Then he went back and was alone again. So sometimes we need to be alone, but know that there are people there for us. And so you have to figure out how to let people know you're always there for them without nagging them that you're there for them. Those of you who have had kids, I'm sure know that. Your kids want to know that you're in the house, but don't want to talk to you. Those of you who have been children, is that everybody? Know that you want your parents there for you, but you may not want to be talking to them at the time. So learn how to rely on people, but give them the space and the time alone that they need. And all of us need that varying amounts of time. So take your time alone and give others their time alone, and somehow work out how to let people know that you are there for them. Now, the next thing I have to say is one that I'm really contemplating. So this is new to me, so rather than teaching you guys, I'm really teaching myself. So this was a topic a couple months ago I decided I should work on a sermon for. So getting to preach was like, oh, perfect. Now I can actually solidify my thoughts a little bit. And this one starts with what Jesus did before he was born. So when Mary went to see Elizabeth, Mary speaks. And what happens is Elizabeth says, the baby inside of me leaped for joy when he heard your voice. All right, here we go. How much joy do we miss out on by not understanding that when our brethren are talking to us, they have God inside of them and the joy we should feel. So there's a few examples in the Bible. Jonathan and David is the first one I can remember, where after David tells Saul about all this stuff that happened, Jonathan and David's souls are knit together. I'm going to say holiness recognizes holiness, because it talks about John the Baptist having the Spirit of the Lord inside of him, even in the womb. So John had the Spirit in him, and Mary had God in her. And when that voice was heard, that was holiness recognizing holiness. I remember growing up, they talked about when Jesus died, the veil of the temple tore in half. And what that meant was, oh, that means we're no longer under the old law. It means that God is now accessible to all of us. And I'm thinking, yes, but it's not really sufficient for me. Before that tail tore, that was God's home. Jesus is a preparer. He was the Word at the beginning. He prepared the world for man. Jesus says, I'm going to prepare a place for you in heaven. So he prepared a place for man in heaven. He's preparing a place for us in heaven. He prepared a place for us on earth. And he also prepared our hearts for God, because the scriptures say that God is now living in us. So when that veil tore, it wasn't just accessing us to God. It was saying, I no longer live here, but he lives here. He is in us, just like he was in Mary. He's in us. And how much joy do we miss out by not recognizing the holiness of others? There are scriptures that say, wisdom makes a man's face to shine, and a wise man is known by his few words. I want to add a little bit about that. Wisdom makes a man's face to shine for those who are seeking wisdom. If you're not seeking wisdom, you won't notice wisdom in others. So the wise man that's known by his few words, if you're not seeking wisdom, he's just quiet. If you're looking for wisdom, like, I want to know what that guy thinks. So seeking is what makes us recognize. When we sing, We are singing to one another. And you are hearing people's voices that have God inside of them. And I want you to listen when you sing and really hear the voice of God's temple coming to you. I don't know what I'm missing out on life. I need to recognize God's voice coming out of people that are holy. How much have I missed in my life? Just kind of, this is what the scripture says, this is what I need to do, and not understanding that God lives in you, and he lives in me, and we're sharing God's voice back and forth. And what a joy that should be, a comfort. That's why I always feel good on Sundays. I'm meeting with God's children. But I want to be able to recognize God's voice more from people that are holy and get that joy out of that. I think that's all I have to say. Let me take a quick look. Well, so that's all I have to say, except for this is the quickest sermon you get to turn around and actually apply it. Because we're going to sing a song together, and what I want you to really do is listen to God's voice coming from those around you. I want you to feel the joy of being in God's presence. So there's the quickest turnaround of a sermon that you can apply. And this is something that, again, I'm sharing you this because this is something I'm going to be working on. So let's go ahead and stand and sing.